In the dark, the diamond teeth of an industrial drill bite into a thick concrete vault wall, grinding slowly through toward the treasure behind it. Behind that wall waited one of the richest rooms in London, rows of safe deposit boxes packed with gold and diamonds. And the men turning that drill were not young. Most of them were pensioners, well over 60. This is the story of the aging crooks who pulled off the biggest burglary in British history. London Easter weekend, April 2015, the jewellery quarter of Hatton Garden. For centuries, this narrow district has been the beating heart of Britain's diamond and gold trade. At its center stood the Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Company, a private vault trusted to guard fortunes. In its basement sat around 70 locked boxes holding cash, gold bars, and loose diamonds. The vault was buried underground behind half a metre of steel-reinforced concrete, sealed like a bunker. You could not blow the door, you could not pick it, you could not simply walk in. So a small crew of old retired career criminals decided to take it the hard way. At the center was a veteran the others called the Master, an elderly mastermind who had waited years for this. Beside him worked the drilling expert, the one man who knew how to bore through solid concrete. Between them, the gang carried more than a century of criminal experience in their tired bones. And they had chosen the one weekend the vault would sit empty and unwatched, the 4-day Easter holiday. On the Thursday night, as London emptied out for the long weekend, the old men went to work. They slipped into the building through a side door and a communal entrance, unhurried and unseen. Inside, they took control of the lift and shut it down, jamming it on an upper floor. Then one by one, these men in their 60s and 70s climbed down the empty lift shafts. Down in the basement, they reached the great steel door of the vault itself. The door was hopeless, layered steel and bolts that no tool of theirs could beat. So they turned instead to the wall beside it, half a metre of bare reinforced concrete. They had brought a heavy industrial tool for exactly this, a diamond-tipped Hilti core drill. It was built to bore clean circular holes straight through solid concrete and stone. They braced it against the wall and began to drill, the diamond bits screaming into the concrete. The first great circular hole ground its way slowly through the half-metre wall. Beside it, they cut a second overlapping hole, then began a third, carving out a rough opening. 3 overlapping bores drilled side by side to open a gap wide enough for a man. As reported, the drill and a pump gave out partway through, and the old men were forced to retreat. But they came back the next night with fresh gear and finished what they had started. At last, a ragged hole broke clean through the concrete, a dark opening into the vault beyond. Through that hole, a single-gloved, aging hand reached into the darkness of the vault. Then the thinnest of the crew squeezed his body through the narrow gap in the concrete. And he dropped down inside the heart of the vault, surrounded by locked steel boxes. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, ran rows of safe deposit boxes, each one a sealed little fortune. One by one, they set to work prizing and levering the metal boxes open. Crowbars and cutting tools bit into the thin doors until they buckled and sprang. The first box burst open, and out spilled loose diamonds glittering in the torchlight. Then gold, bars and coins and heavy chains, warm and yellow under their lamps. Then thick bundles of cash, banded and stacked, more money than most see in a lifetime. Box after box after box. By the end, they had broken open around 70 of them. They swept the loot into holdalls and wheeled it out in ordinary bins and cases. By most estimates, the haul was worth around £14 million in cash, gold, and gems. Some reports put it even higher, as much as 25 million. The true figure was never certain. Bag by heavy bag, they hauled the fortune back up out of the basement and into the night. And by the gray light of Easter morning, the old men and their treasure had simply vanished. For 4 long days, nobody knew a thing. The vault sat silent behind its locked door. Then on the Tuesday after Easter, the staff returned and opened up the basement. They found a ransacked vault, a jagged hole in the wall, and 70 boxes torn open. The old men were sure they had done the impossible and gotten clean away. But the streets of Hatton Garden were watched by cameras, and the cameras had seen them. Detectives pieced together the crew's movements, and a distinctive car caught on the footage. That car led them to names, aging faces already known to police from decades before. As reported, officers bugged their cars and phones and simply listened as the old men bragged. They talked of the gold, the diamonds, the drill, and the net quietly drew tight around them. Within weeks, police swooped and arrested the gang, most of them pensioners. One by one, the old men were led away in handcuffs, their great last job undone. Nearly all of them were convicted and sent to prison for the record-breaking burglary. And much of the treasure, gold, diamonds, and cash, was never recovered at all. They had pulled off the biggest burglary in British history, and it had still not been enough to save them. A crew of old men, most of them over 60, drilled through solid concrete for one last impossible score and very nearly walked away with it. That is crooked genius.